Hello, welcome back to Happening Horror. It's me, your girl, Heather. On this episode, we're going to cover the 1996 horror classic, Scream, directed by Mr. Wes Craven himself, starring Neve Campbell, Drew Barrymore, Matthew Lillard, and a myriad of other great actors. So, let us not waste any more time and hop right to it. So I just want to get straight to it and say Scream, the series in general, is one of my favorites. Definitely been a big part of my horror culture growing up as a 27-year-old millennial in this world. And I can't ever get enough of it. I watch this movie frequently. Even when I'm just trying to go to bed, I throw this on and it's perfect for me to go to bed to, unlike normal people. Really quickly, I want to touch base on our director, Wes Craven. May he rest in peace. He is an iconic piece of horror culture, and there's no one that could ever change my mind about that. He gave us classics like the Nightmare on Elm Street series, which is one of my personal favorites. The original Hills Have Eyes and the Hills Have Eyes Part 2 that also came out in the 1970s and then again in 2007. We also have another great movie, The Wishmaster, which he also gave us, and Last House on the Left. And that's just a small tidbit of horror culture he brought to our lives. And then he brought forth the Scream series in the 1990s, which became an iconic piece of horror culture for all of us, much like the man himself. And he was so adamant on keeping stuff authentic. Quotation marks only because it is a Hollywood slasher and you're gonna encounter things that are entirely realistic, which Wes Craven made sure that we got a little bit of just to satisfy our thirst for that Hollywood slasher feeling. And he did it so well. So let's cover a couple fun facts that Wes Craven did to make the film that more realistic for us. So here's one of my favorite facts from the film that Wes Craven actually did. As many of you know, the voice of Ghostface was portrayed by Robert L. Jackson, and the actors weren't actually allowed to meet him while filming. Though Robert was present on set, Wes Craven wanted to make sure they did not meet because he was worried about them associating that voice with that face and creating something in their mind that not might fit to the form of his film. So when we hear the calls, that's the actor's genuine reaction and what they're feeling. And I think when Wes did that, it made it so much better. However, Robert was allowed to call the cast members to go over lines and rehearse for those scenes. And the phone calls that were made on set were actual phone calls. It just wasn't recorded audio. They actually were able to call and talk to Robert while filming, which I think is a great little piece of tidbit facts that I found. And I'll throw the links down for the facts that I'm finding for you guys down below so you guys can go check out all this cool stuff. Getting straight into the movie, I want to talk about the opening sequence starring Drew Barrymore portraying the lovely character of Casey, although her moments were short-lived. In the opening sequence of the film, we see Casey by herself at home just on a weekend, nice and comfortable. Being a teenager in the 90s, you had your TVs, you would go to Blockbuster, maybe rent a movie, and that's basically what she did. She's at home enjoying her weekend, and she gets a call that has become iconic. And I just love the voice of Robert Jackson for Ghostface. He really honed it in and gave us that grainy serial killer sound that we've known to come and love in horror films, and we can't thank him enough for it. But just the opening sequence alone really set the tone of the film, and Wes Craven did so well while doing that. The chase scenes in there were great, and the music that was put in there, although minor, was great. And we can thank Marco Beltrami for that, which was actually his first major motion picture composition. Continuing on the opening scene, we really see the tone set like I previously stated. And in the chase scenes, we see a lot of your kind of cliche horror movements, the stopping and the looking that really builds the suspense. When Casey runs out and sees her boyfriend just gutted on the chairs, she stops and takes a moment to look at him and hesitates to run forward, which we always scream at the TV, "What are you doing? You need to keep running, don't stand there." And she just keeps going, which is great. But the only thing I thought was funny was when she sees her parents pulling up into the driveway and she stops. Come on, Casey, you want to live, you don't want to die. But you know what? Your choice is your choice, honey, it's fine. So we really see the cliches pulled together just in these opening sequences, and Wes Craven did a great job of that. But he also kept it kind of serious as well. He made sure there wasn't too much comedy in this opening scene, which I very much appreciated. And we really get to see the slasher come through in this opening sequence. When Casey is killed and we see her hung from the tree, just her insides are out, it really showed us what we could expect from the film, because that had to be one of the most graphic parts of the film. And I really enjoyed it all that much more because of it. It wasn't an overdone bloodbath, at least for me. So let's keep going, and I want to talk about the rest of the great scenes in this film. There are a myriad of great scenes in this film that we could go over, but I want to touch base on one of my favorites, and I think one of the most important actually is when we see Stu, Randy, and Billy at the Blockbuster in Woodsboro. They're there in public talking about the killings while Randy is at work. And this gives us a chance to speculate on who the killer might be. Is it one of the three? Or is it none of them? Or is it all of them? But they really wanted us to believe that Randy could be the killer. Since he was in the movie club, he knows the rules of horror, and he knows what it takes to survive a horror film. So for those of us who are new to horror, we would suspect him first because he's sweet, he's adorable, and he's charming. We want to believe that someone like that couldn't be the killer, but still in the back of our heads we see that. And I really think the dialogue in this scene really pulls it all together when they're standing there talking about anyone could be a suspect. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how well you know the rules. But I really think this scene set the tone for the final part of the film when we see the reveal of who the killers actually are. So we do have a great cast of characters in this film. We have the iconic Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers. We have David Arquette as Officer Dewey. But I want to talk about Stu, Sydney, and Billy specifically, and what they brought to the table for this film as characters themselves. Starting off with Sydney. Sydney is a very troubled teenager. Her mother has died not even a year prior in this film, and the killings start taking place the week of her mother's 1-year anniversary of her death. So she's already dealing with a lot of trauma. So when this starts happening, it puts Sydney on edge, and Neve Campbell did a great job of showing us that. She constantly was showing us development. She went from being a potential victim to being a fighter and a survivor. And we have to give great kudos to the writers and directors for giving that to us, because we don't want our victim, our main character, to stay the victim. We want them to be the survivor. And gosh, did they do that so well with Sydney. And we even see that later on throughout the films in the entire series. Matthew Lillard as Stu was amazing. Even though Matthew Lillard didn't think it was one of his best performances in a 2015 interview, which I will link down below, he thought he could have done so much better. He thought he was really gummy and his teeth were kind of big, but he doesn't realize the impact that his character had on us as fans. Constantly had us guessing, gave us moments of comedy, and that's what makes his character so great. Although Billy, played by C. Ulbrich, is the very dark, sinister, troubled teenager whose mom is divorced, and he's not really coping with it very well, and is very manipulative. We don't really see that in Stu. And I think that's so great how they were able to separate the characters so much that it gave us a little bit of confusion. And Matthew Lillard, there is no way that this role was not one of the best that has been done. I love it so much, definitely one of my favorites. And little fun fact for you guys, the iconic line, "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad," was actually ad-libbed by Matthew Lillard right there, and Wes Craven decided to keep it in the final cut. Billy Loomis, our iconic killer in the Scream movie. He is the crazy boyfriend that nobody wants. But we don't realize he's crazy until it's a little too late. Because Skeet Ulrich did such a great job of manipulating us the way he manipulated Sydney in the movie. He really brought to life the character of Billy so well. We like him, we have a little love for him, and we don't want him to be the killer just like we didn't want Randy to be the killer. So he did so well with that. But when we come to find out that he is the killer and he's mad at Sydney's mom for breaking up his parents' relationship, you're kind of like, hey Billy, it's not her fault. Don't do that. But it is a very poetic thing to happen in a film, and this murder was definitely going to be the ultimate crime of passion if Billy had succeeded with it. One more fun fact for you guys about this film is that the party scene actually was 42 minutes long, and the film was 111 minutes long, which is quite a long runtime. But something even cooler is that it took a course of 21 days to fully complete filming that scene. From the time the party starts till the sun rises the next morning, that's quite a bit of filming. And after it wrapped up, the crew had t-shirts made that said, "I survived filming scene 118." And they wore them with pride, as they should. And the crew even joked about how it was the longest night in horror movie history. Thank you all for tuning in again on my channel, Happening Horror. Stay tuned when I come back next week with you with Trick or Treat, which is a pretty good movie, at least I think. We're gonna find out what I really think. But until then, I want y'all to stay safe and stay spooky.